Hi, I'm Richard Gerhardt here with Elizabeth Gerhardt, and we're from Passage to Profit, and we're at a very exciting event today, a Peak Pitch, which is a place where entrepreneurs and investors can meet to learn all about each other, and maybe money will change hands.
Let me introduce Carey Nadeau. She is a founder here, and she's going to talk about her company. Welcome, Carey.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah. So I'll jump right in. My company is called ODN. We essentially take information about the roads and try to identify roads that are really unsafe to drive.
Coming from New Jersey, you have no business at all.
I know. Well, so it's intuitive, right? You and I all know those dangerous roads, the one that might be in your neighborhood.
There's a pothole that they just never fix.
Never fix.
A blind corner, yeah.
A blind corner. For me, it's a stop sign onto an on-ramp of a highway. I'm like, who designed this? What a poor idea. And I always see traffic crashes there. And I said, well, what are we doing to actually measure the risk of the road itself? And how can that information help inform decisions of commercial fleets, team drivers, and insurance carriers specifically, who are looking to identify drivers who are most exposed and most likely to be involved in a crash?
That is such a great idea. You're going to be the most popular woman in the United States.
Well, to the insurance companies. So if you drive to work every day over a giant pothole, your insurance is going up.
Yeah, and it actually helps qualify more people of color, who are immigrants and women, who have difficulty qualifying in some of the more traditional measures like your financial history or your previous history of driving. If you're new to this country, you may not have a credit score that an American company can use to qualify you. And so really pricing it based on where you drive not only more accurately reflects the risk of you, the driver, but also helps the insurance carriers acquire new customers and tap into new markets that they have otherwise difficulty accessing.
So how does the product work?
Yeah, so it's actually a data play. It's a data as a service. Our customers share with us their locational information of their customers. So you may have an app on your phone that you've given away your location information to. You may have a device that plugs into your car. If you're a commercial vehicle, it's federally mandated so that you don't, they're called ELDs, logs that track how much you drive so that you're not driving too much and falling asleep at the wheel. Any locational information that's gathered from the vehicle, they share with us. We pair the roadway information with it, from roadway characteristics to previous history of crashes to our own proprietary score of the probability of a crash on that road. And we serve it back to the carrier, aggregated by customer, by route, by fleet, and we compare their book of business to the overall population so they know if they're more or less exposed. The carriers then use that to engage the customers. So they give it back to the drivers and say, hey, if you're making choices about where to drive, here's a road you might consider avoiding. And then they use it to identify, again, drivers that are on the most exposed roads so that they can coach them or they can maybe price them differently if necessary.
So really this is meant to help manage insurance rates and reduce accidents. What about municipalities? These are the people that really need the information.
Sure, I would agree.
The guy who's fixing the road, he needs to know where to go.
I would agree. The people making the investments and maybe actually fixing the infrastructure, you don't ever see this speed hump was brought to you by MetLife, although I think that would be a great idea.
That is a good idea.
I know.
On the other hand, it may not make any difference. You can call the city as often as you want, and maybe they'll get out there, maybe they won't.
Well, this is the reality, is that cities are overwhelmed by the inflow of requests to fix my road in my neighborhood, and they have a really hard time prioritizing the very limited resources that go into fixing infrastructure, which are oftentimes very big investments. You're ripping up roads, you're putting in roundabouts or installing traffic lights. It's expensive. So we actually work with the cities as well. We've worked with the city of Chicago, Washington, D.C., and L.A., all to prioritize their investments in transportation infrastructure.
So how long have you been doing this?
This is a 5-year-old company. We started predominantly actually focusing on government because we had the same logic. We said, well, let's work for the people that can fix the problem.
Nothing like banging your head against the wall.
But what we learned is that the people with the financial incentives to actually reduce risk are the commercial fleets, those that want to keep their drivers safe and make sure their goods get delivered on time and safely, and the insurance carriers who price their insurance policies.
So what is the business model for this? How does your company make money?
Yeah, so we actually sell data as a service. So we'll charge a minimum price that gives clients access to our data feed. and designates specified purposes they can use it for, like routing or risk selection. And then we charge them a per API call or per customer call for any customers that exceed the base price.
So do you have any data yet? I know it's 5 years isn't that long, on reduced traffic incidents because
what
of this?
state has the worst roads? That's what I want to know.
Well, I just want to know if they're saving lives.
Yeah, we're reducing crashes and saving lives. The impact is very real. So one way that we do measure that is the actual identification of customers that are on the most unsafe roads. That's information we didn't have. And if it's you, I bet you want to know if you're that driver, right? I want to know. I want to know if my teen is that driver.
So does this integrated with like a Google Maps kind of program? So when you choose your route, then it says pothole coming up on your right?
So we have a partnership with Esri, which is a locational information software. Not Google, but a lot of the fleets use it because it's got more routing capabilities or different routing capabilities. So we partner with Esri in order to enable fleets to use this as part of their routing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. I never would have thought of this, but it's an absolute fantastic idea.
I hope that it becomes part of our lives. Like, how did we live without this in a way? How did we drive blind really effectively? And thinking that it's not just us that's causing traffic crashes, but the infrastructure that and the people that we encounter on the road, the environment in which we operate really has an important effect on our risk. And that's true outside of auto, right? That's true in small commercial businesses who locate their businesses in dangerous neighborhoods or in a building that's failing its health inspections, right? It's related to homeowners insurance. If you put your house in a floodplain zone or a hurricane alley, those are external risks that have really nothing to do with you. But we've never brought in this idea to auto until now.
That's great. I mean, you can't fix what you don't know, right? So if, and what is a hazard to me may not be a hazard to somebody else, but if you get a lot of people complaining about something, then it is a problem and you can get great attention.
There's an on-ramp in Washington, D.C., to give you a very specific example. There are about 7 bridges that go into Washington, D.C. on the southern side. So you have all of the shipping and delivery from the Amazon facilities coming up through Washington, D.C. from Virginia. There's one on-ramp that had 29 crashes in December. The adjacent on-ramp had 1. So if you're making choices,
I think I know which one I would
and
take.
you're delivering packages. No wonder they're getting here so late.
the choice is clear. And the only reason
I thought they would be sending those drones by now, but I guess.
the only reason we know about it is because we were like, that can't be right? And we go there and we look at it, and it's this crazy merge at high speeds and all sorts of blind angles directly into the sun. And you're like, wow, none of those variables have anything to do with the driver. And if I'm an insurance carrier, if I'm in a fleet measuring, am I hard braking, am I speeding? That's great and all, but let's just see if the road for what it is. This is a really dangerous place to be.
This sounds like an excellent company. It's taken Waze a step further. And great. So how can people find you?
Yeah, you can visit our website. It's called ODN Sure, ODN, and then SURE.com. Or they can email me directly. My name's Carey, and I'd love to, talk to folks that are really interested in commercial fleets or insurance risk pricing.
So is it Carey-Ann at odnsure.com?
It is.
Oh,
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
This has been Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gerhardt. We're at the Peak Pitch event